We're on Daf Tzadi Aleph, and we're about, I would say, maybe 12 lines down from the top of the Omer. And, Ben, so this is going to be your last day for a while, right? Because if not, let me know. I would bring in, I have an extra bar in Yevamot back in I
start coming on Sunday.
Oh, all right. So if you give me a notification in advance, I'll bring in, I have a second copy. If you don't mind, it's much smaller than this one of Masechet Yevamot. So the Mishnah says, Achiv shel zeh v'achiv shel zeh choltzin v'lo miyabne. Right, so her husband comes back alive, and eventually what happens is that her first husband dies without children, or alternatively, her second husband dies without children. Now, assuming we'll go through both cases, let's say her first husband died without children, and he leaves a brother, surviving brother. Then she falls for Yibum to her late husband's brother. But the Rabbanan, in this case, wanted to break up the marriage between her and her first husband. And they required him to give her a get. She can no longer resume her relationship with her first husband. And that's because she went ahead and had this second marriage while her husband was still alive. So in this case, on a Doraisa level, we should say, let's give it names. We'll say that her first husband's name is Ruvain, and he has a brother named Shimon. When Ruvain dies, she should fall for Yibum to Shimon. And yet the Mishnah says, there won't be Yibum. We're going to object to Yibum, but on the other hand, she's what's called Zkuka Vomedes. She needs to get out of the marriage to Shimon, because she had a zika to Shimon as a result of her marriage relation to Ruvain. So she can't marry anyone without chalitza.
It seems counterintuitive. Why would you need chalitza? Seems counterintuitive.
Let's read the next line in the Gemara. Achiv shel rishon choletz midoraisa v'lo miyavi midrabanan. The Rabbanan are going to object to Yibum. Why? This is an extension of the original Knas. The Knas was that she can no longer go back to resume her marriage relation with her first husband, we called him Ruvain. And the Rabbanan took it one step further. And they said that if as a result of her marriage to Ruvain, she has a zika to Shimon, we're not going to allow that marriage to take place. So that Yibum is an impossibility on a Dorabanan level. Doraisa, Yibum. Because Shimon is the brother of the late Reuben who died without children. But the Rabbanan block Yibum. But now she's in a situation where she fell for Yibum, that's called Zika, and she doesn't have a possibility of marrying anyone else unless you break up that zika. And the Torah recognizes that zika. So the Rabbanan could block Yibum, but it would be cruel, so to speak, to block Chalitza, making it virtually impossible for her to ever get married because she's always kuka to Shimon. So that's wonderful. We can justify this juggling act with regard to Shimon, the brother of Ruvain, her first husband, juggling Chalitza and Yibum, putting an X on Yibum, but requiring Chalitza. Shimon will be required to give the Yevama, this woman, Chalitza. That works out perfect. But now let's apply the same rules to the second husband. So now she went ahead thinking that her first husband was dead, and she married a second husband. We can't call him Shimon because Shimon is the brother of her first husband, and we'll get too confused. So let's call him Levi. Okay? Levi dies without children. Levi has a brother named Yehuda. She now falls for Yibum to Yehuda, but that's ridiculous. Why is that ridiculous?
Is that second marriage nullified?
Correct. She's not married to Levi. There's no Zika to Yehuda, Levi's brother. So why does the Mishnah say Achiv Shel Zeh, which is Shimon, the Achiv Shel Zeh, which is Yehuda, Choltzin v'lo miyabim? This is a joke. The whole enterprise of Chalitza with regard to Yehuda, the brother of the Baal Hasheni, all of a sudden, is ridiculous. Unless we go back to the original halach of get. And the Mishnah established what's the she needs a get from, what do we call him? Levi. Why does she need a get from Levi? She was never married to Levi. But the Rabbanan were afraid that since she was living with Levi, albeit in sin, but nobody saw it as being living in sin. Everyone thought that her first husband, Reuven, was dead, and she legally, Kedasu Kedin, got married to Levi. If she would leave her marriage to Levi without a get, the Mishnah says, people are going to think that any children that she has from a subsequent marriage are mamzerim, because she never got a get from her husband, Levi. Now let's apply that one generation beyond that. Levi dies. He leaves a brother, Yehuda. If she goes out and gets married without chalitza from Yehuda, when everyone is under the opinion that she was married Kedasu Kedin legally to Levi, then it looks like she's Yevamot Lashon. Now again, what's the deal with a child born from a Yevamot Lashon? That's a machlokas Rav and Levi Masechet Yevamot. But according to one opinion, I don't remember right now who says what, I think it's Rav, who says that the child of such a relation is a mamzer. People are going to call this kid a mamzer because she never got chalitza from Levi. Of course, we understand why she never got chalitza from Levi, because she was never married to, I'm sorry, I meant to say Yehuda. We understand why she never got chalitza from Yehuda, because she was never married to Levi to begin with. But the people, the spectators on the street, they don't know that. They think she was married legally to Levi. She's been living with Levi for the last 50 years. And now Reuven comes back and he's alive. Is Memela, she needs chalitza. Let's read it inside. Achiv Shilsheni Choletz Midrabbanan. V'lo miyaben shel lo midaraisa v'lo midrabbanan. Now let's just think about the status of Yehud. Yehud is what we call a Nachri. Nachri meaning he's not related to anybody. Of course, he's the brother of the late Levi, but Levi is nobody because she was never married to Levi. So as far as the Doraisa is concerned, she could marry Yehuda. And we could dance at our wedding. There's no problem in her relationship with Yehuda. But insofar as we instituted a knas to break up our relationship with Levi, we will likewise object on a D'Rabbanan level to her marriage to Yehuda. So on the one hand, we're not going to allow for Yibum on the part of Yehuda, even though the Torah would certainly allow it, because it wouldn't be Yibum, it would just be that she's marrying a stranger. The Rabbanan will object to Yibum, but on the other hand, in order to permit this woman to get married to someone else and protect the laws, the shmoozing about the mamzeris here, we're going to have to require a get, again, not a get from Yehuda, but instead of a get, chalif. He has a note here. Explain in other words, the language of Gemara is a little bit problematic. It sounds like when the Gemara says lo miyabim, lo midoraisa, we'll get to lo midorabanan for a second. Let's just focus on those two words, lo midoraisa. Wait a second, lo midoraisa means that there's no mitzvah of evil on a doraisa. But that doesn't really explain why she can't marry you. I understand why she can't marry Levi, because Levi is part of the problem, if you follow what I mean. Levi is in cahoots with this woman. He married her thinking that her first husband is gone. Maybe he should have done a little bit more research. But in any event, within the context of her marriage to Levi, we certainly understand the knas that the Rabbanan will not allow that marriage to continue. She was guilty of basically adultery by living with Levi. She didn't do her due diligence in determining that in truth her first husband Reuven had died. But why should we impose a knas preventing or prohibiting a marriage between her and Yehuda? I understand there's no chova and mitzvah yibum. That's ridiculous. But why did the Rabbanan step up to the plate and institute a knas prohibiting her from marrying Yehuda? So in the note here, he says, Re'eh b'yalkut b'yurim. Now, the Yalkut B'Urim on Daf Tzadi Aleph Amud Beis is gigantic. But let me just see if we can very quickly focus on the right paragraph. If you'll give me just a minute, if you can bear with me. Okay. He says the following. Achiv shel sheni choletz midrabanan v'lo miyabim lo midoraisa v'lo midrabanan. He says li'el daf peiches amid beis Hagmar mevaeres ma'u atam shekonsu shetzricha get me'asheni. The Omer Gmor Shatamut Shema Yomru Yiresh Zev V'Nos Hasheni V'Yizbru Shehi Ish V'Yotzeis Below Get. All right, it's a little bit different than what I said. I said that people are going to say that the first husband was dead, but apparently they know that he's alive, but they're going to assume that he gave her a get. So therefore, she's legally married to the second husband. This is all in the figment of the imagination of the spectators, the onlookers. Then the Gemara says in Cain, Gam im rak kidsha sheni titztarech get. The Mishnah says that she went ahead and she had a full-fledged marriage relationship with all the intimacy of husband and wife with the sheni, with Levi, we call it. Implying that if she was only Mekudeshes LeLevi, then she would not require a get. Why not? B'taretzes HaGemara, sheyomru kiddushay tos hayu that certainly the people will understand that that Kedusha was not valid. The lo yomru giresh zeh v'nosa zeh, the eshes ish yotza below get. Umaksha Gemara and Cain, this is a good chazor for us. Gam b'niseis yomru Cain. Why can't they say the same thing in the case of niseis? Let's assume that if she doesn't get a get from Levi, from the Sheni, it's because that marriage was not a valid marriage. It was Kedushay Tos. V'taretzet HaGemara, shebeniseis sha'asasa iser shenivala konsur rabbana. Mashen ke b'kidesh shlo asasa dayin iser lo konsur rabbana. And the Rif writes, Elaresha diyavda isura kasur rabbana. So it's not just an issue of the spectators saying that what Ashes Ishiotza below get, because that should apply even in Kedushin, but rather the requirement of a get from the Sheni is based on a Knas. And the Knas is a result of the fact that of her Isura, she had an intimacy with her second husband, and that's why she's suitable or deserves a Knas. So Lamaskana, the Gemara seems to have dropped the ball on Shalo Yom, right? Girish Zev and Asa Zev, HCC Shotze below get. So that's the riff. Harash Cholek Olav, the Eina Dorikin. Elegam Lamaskana, so verse Gemara, Tam, Shemi Yomru, Girish Zev, Vinosa Zev. And they think there's a valid legal marriage to the Shady, to Levi, and then the whole business about Yotzis below get, and therefore, Chash Laz Mamzerus. Lachiluk, Enksha of the Isura, Ansura, but a little low of the Isura. So, in other words, according to the Rush, what difference does it make if she consummated her marriage with the Sheni or not? Umishum achshash levad lo tzrichu rabbanan get rak sheyesh tam lekons. Very complicated. So once there's an okay to consummate her, because she went and she lived with the second husband, then we'll apply the principle of Chayshin and Shemiyomru Girish Zevinasa Zeh. Iksham Arshol, Afishitas Rashi Varosh, Imkain Lama Asura Lis Yabem, Li Achiv Shel Shem. Hareba Zeh, Ein Ligzar Shemiyomru Girish Zevinasa Zeh. She'im gamim girish zevenos zeh he muteres li achiv shel sheni lisyabe. So what are you going to tell me? That people are going to say that. One second. So why can't marry? Ein ligzar shemiyomu girish zevenos. We're afraid that they're going to say that the marriage to Levi is valid. And that's why we're going to require a get from Levi. No, if that's what you're worried about, then let Yehuda be the Abem. Because if if in the mindset of the onlookers, she's actually been legally married to Levi, then now Yehuda should step up to the plate to be Mekayim Yibum. That's the Marshal's Kash.
Is this can I answer your question now?
Sure.
Aren't there situations in which even Bemezi, so let's say Kohen marries a Grusha, but after the fact, they were married to it, still Tofes.
Correct.
So we still have to get again. So here she's showing she didn't do due diligence, but she wasn't amazing. She made a mistake. But all the more so, but the marriage is Tofes, and therefore she has to get again.
Wait a second. Which marriage is Tofes?
The
second one?
The woman marriage started her husband passed away,
and she married the lady.
It wasn't amazing. She didn't do a good job.
Okay. So this is what the Gemara, again, we can go over to the whole Gemara, but the Gemara is saying that this is the only way that we can rely on her if she realizes the repercussions. So we're really trying to protect a case where she comes forward and says, based on Eid Echad, I did my due diligence, I did my research, and he's in fact dead. So again, leave out the issue of why she deserves the knas. Let's just grant it that she didn't do her job. She should have known better. She wasn't absolutely certain that her husband died. She should not have married the second one. But now the question is, the second marriage is worthless, absolutely worthless. Why are we requiring a get? Because people will think that the first husband delivered a get, and the second marriage is therefore valid marriage. He says, if that be the case, this is Marshal's Kasha, when Levi dies, meaning our second husband, let Yehuda marry her. Because what are they going to say? That the marriage to Levi was valid? So Adarabah. If the marriage to Levi was valid, then now she falls for Yibum to Yehuda. Are you with me on that? If the whole reason why you're requiring a get from Levi is because people will think that her marriage to Levi is valid, then Adarabah, on that basis, you should allow Yehuda after the death of Levi to marry her, because they'll say that's evil. They'll applaud the fact that he's marrying the wife of his late brother Levi, because they think that she was valid. The marriage to Levi was valid. That's the Marshal's Kash. How many minutes do we have left? Okay, I know John has to go. John left her. Ayashrish Yaakov, I don't know who he is. Machlokas Arif Rashi Barosh Ene Sheyefes L'Yanenu Klal. Shema Shenechleku L'Yanyin Masha Tzricha Get Me'Hasheni, Aval L'Yanyin Masha Asura L'Sheni. Ze Vadai Mishum. In other words, you could have a machlokas why the Rabbanan required a get from the Sheni when the marriage to the Sheni is worthless. But if you ask why she's not allowed to continue in an intimate relationship with the Sheni, that's for sure Mishum Knas. Everybody would agree with that. And then now we quote to Ricky Vega, Me'ezet tam yesh lesar soli achiv shel sheni, mimanav shem. Imnach shivena kamoshe zinsa, harei sota muteres li achiv shel boem. Imnach shivenu kinisua, mishum sheshem yomer girish zevenas zeh, harei ke muteres lisyavim li achiv shel boem. And now he quotes the Aruch LaNer. So I'm just pointing out here that there's a lot of literature that's confused about why the Gemara and the Mishnah before the Gemara insist that she cannot marry the brother of the second husband, meaning Yehuda. Now, at the end of this whole presentation, he quotes the Aruch LaNer, who apparently has a Yerushalmi, Kishem shasur li achiv shel Baal, Let's just try to understand. Shalbal. Right, we said that Achiv Shalbal is a Knas D'Rabbanan. Right, Konsua Midrabbanan. Now we're going to have a knas. Oh, I see. So the whole premise of the kasha that we've been asking over and over again is that why should there be a knas imposed upon Yehuda? And we added that the chashash of people saying that if she marries Yehuda, there's something illegitimate about that marriage. That's not so. Because Adarab, they'll say it's a kibbutz of yibum. So at the end of the day, what we're going to have to insist upon is that the reason why she can't marry Yehuda is mishum knas. That's also part of the knas. I think what the Yerushalmi is saying here is that the knas is not on the brother, meaning on Yehuda, the knas is on her. And just like she can't marry the brother of her first husband, we called him Shimon, the brother of Reuven, her husband. So too, she can't marry the brother of her second husband. Meaning, in both cases, the knas is because she violated the terms of marriage. She violated the terms of marriage vis-a-vis her first husband and the terms of marriage by going in and living with her second husband. And in both cases, we treat her like as if she was a sota. And although Doraisa, she's allowed to marry the brother of her sota, the Rabbanan instituted knas, and she can't marry the brother of a sota. That's what I think the Aruch LaNer is getting from this Yerushalmi. Kishem shasur liyachiv shel baal, kach asur gam liyachiv shel boel.
How can we make an analogy with Sota? There's no warning, it seems very far-fetched.
No, they're going to warn her a lot before she gets married. They're going to warn her. They're going to say to her, look, let me read to you the riot act. If you marry the second husband and your husband is alive, your first husband, we got a whole list of penalties that we're going to impose upon. And that, as I mentioned to you before, Ben, is the whole reason why we're being so strict and imposing these penalties. After all, you say she's a shogeg, she thought her husband died. What's terrible in that? She wanted to have more children. You could give a whole, what's it called? Those things on the television. Those, you know what I'm talking about? Those shows, soap operas. So I can give you a whole soap opera. You'll start crying and you'll say, well, it's good that she got married to the second guy. But the whole purpose here is to avoid a situation of Ashes, Mamzeris, etc. So we're going to read her the riot act. We're going to scare the living daylights out of her. We're going to tell her, look, if you didn't do everything that convinces you beyond doubt that your husband is dead, this is what was going to happen to you.
The knas is a preventative measure.
Correct.
So maybe she should.
Every knas is really preventative, but here you see it explicitly.
Maybe shogeg will keep people amazing. She kind of like
whatever. But again, keep in mind, what's at stake over here? There's one witness testifying that her husband's dead. We don't have two witnesses. We're going to fill in the blank because she is definite about the fact that her husband's dead. She knows it with every fiber in her body. But in order to rely on that, we have to scare her to living daylights and tell her what the repercussions are if and when you didn't do your due diligence and you weren't absolutely certain. And in fact, your husband is still alive. And one of the knasos that we impose upon is that which goes beyond the law of a sota. A sota could marry the brother of her husband, obviously after she gets again. In this case, we're going to say she can't marry the brother of her husband. And we said that vis-a-vis the brother of her first husband, we're going to apply the same yardstick and the same knas to the brother of her second husband. That's what the Aruch LaNer finds in the Yerushalmi. Eina kavana shekol sota asura li'achiv shel baal or achiv shel boel. Rak ba'ofen hazeh shenisais al pi'ed echad kansur Rabbanan Yosef. The Rabbanan imposed upon her a knas that goes in beyond the law of a sota. In the case of a sota, she can marry the brother of the person that either she was married to or the person that she had this adulterous relationship with. She's allowed to marry him if she survives the Beibori. But not in this case. And that's how the Aruch LaNer understands this. All right, so let's just make a note of where we got up to here.
I thought that's adultery. She's escorted to the boil and the. She was only secluded or something. So.
No, but I'm saying she can marry his brother. So let's say, for example, she had an adulterous relationship with so-and-so. She's allowed to marry. Sota only prohibits her from marrying the Boaz or the Baal. She can't go back to the Baal, but she can marry the Baal's husband.
Baal's brother.
I'm saying the Baal's brother. That's after he gives her a gift. But in this knas, we go even beyond. That's the Yerushalmi. All right, so this will pick up. Thank
you.
Okay, then we're making some progress. I mean, again, this is a whole new world. All right. All the best.
Why are we so concerned?